Okay, a very warm afternoon to everyone who is in our Zoom webinar now. My name is Daryl and I'm with Scholarship Guide. So I'd like to thank RI for having us as part of their Career and Scholarship e-fair. So today I will serve as the moderator for you. For those who are not familiar with David, today we are very fortunate to have David, who is a very seasoned veteran in the advertising and marketing industry. So he will give some of his insights and explain what is O2O and how it affects us. And also if you have any questions for David to answer, be it questions about the slides and the webinar session, or if you have any questions regarding advertising in general, you can feel free to direct these questions into the chat box in Zoom. And we will have a very short Q&A session at the end of the whole webinar. So without further ado, let me invite David to start his webinar. David.
Hi, afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Very much appreciate and enjoy your joining us. Today, I'm going to be sharing some views or my understanding of what's happening in the workplace, in a world or a dual world of online and offline. I think every one of us lives and spends a certain percentage of our time, a portion of our daily lives in the online space. But our lives physically are rooted in the offline space. And this is a duality that marketeers, businesses, brands, property owners and landlords around the world are having to grapple with over the past decade or longer. It's something that as each of us embark on a career or on a study program towards a lifelong career, we'll have to get an understanding of and see how it affects what we learn, what we do, how we grow and succeed. Now, online is one world, offline is another world. And then when the borders between the two merge, we start talking about being in many places at one time, being at all places at one time. So the new word comes out, Omni-Channel. So today I'm going to spend a little time sharing with you what we see happening online, offline, and Omni-Channel. Okay, let me start by sharing with you how the worlds meet. How the borders between online and offline are disappearing, evaporating. Okay, we start with retail, right? In the shopping experience. How many of you, and you can go to your reactions and raise a hand there, we'll be curious to know. How many of you have ever gone to a shop like Skechers to try the product and then go back home or even just go outside the store and buy the product online? So what you have, let me see how many of you have raised their hands. Okay, what you are seeing in the world today is many brands and businesses who may be in the brick and mortar physical world needing to go online to sell their products because that's where people shop and buy and spend their money. But they cannot close their brick and mortar stores. They need to maintain them in order to give the customer an experience, a chance to touch, feel, try, experience their products. Let me give you another example where online and offline meet. In the property business, and that's really brick and mortar as you can get, right? When property owners think about greening themselves, creating a sustainable business, and they build solar panels, or they want to monitor the electricity consumption or the water consumption, the carbon emission and carbon footprint of their buildings. How do they do it? They need a technology platform that can, in the Internet of Things, monitor that utilities consumption and then track the carbon footprint. And that IoT platform then allows the property manager or facility manager to monitor whether there's a leak somewhere, there's a spike in water usage, Is there an exceptional high in electricity consumption that week or that month, and benchmark it against the general community or country or city they're in, and then be able to go in and manage that consumption and carbon footprint output. So in the real estate business, facilities management, real estate management, property management, if you're thinking of going into the real estate career or business, this is something you're going to have to learn to work with. Let's talk about hospitality. You book your hotels online and you sleep in the hotel on site. And in the hotel room, for business hotels, for example, the hotel now places a phone where you can easily find delivery food or even shopping delivery, so that if you're on business and you have meetings and can't go out to shop, you can do your shopping for your souvenirs for your family, and it can get delivered to your hotel. So the online and offline, you book online, you sleep on site, you order online and receive it offline, it's all merging. And the hospitality business has to grapple with that. In the company I work with now, Centurion, we have student dormitories in the US, UK, Australia, and we have to manage that online marketing of our student rooms, which is the picture you see there, the image you see there, and then we have to receive the students on site, right? Another increasingly sophisticated profession or that is a spin-off from marketing and branding is customer service. All the major brands that you use, all the major products you use, from Grab to telephone companies to travel companies, right? They have customer service centers. And today, when you go online through your mobile or website or even call through a landline for customer help, the first thing is self-serve customer service. There's a chatbot that incorporates artificial intelligence to automate responses to the most common questions or inquiries that customers might have. And then if you have unique questions, that then pushes to a guided conversation. But in the space of customer service, with more automation and AI chatbots meeting the needs to deliver a satisfied customer, what the technologists and the managers have to do is humanize that artificial intelligence auto response. So the worlds of digital, human, virtual, voice all merge together. The offline and online meet. Let me share a few more examples. These are all brands that you or your parents will be extremely familiar with. This time we start from the bottom right. Lancome, a beauty skincare brand, right? And some color cosmetics as well. They have launched a virtual reality online store, which is modeled after their flagship store in the real world, physical world. And that's verging into being Metaverse, right? But short of being the avatar Metaverse, right? But you go online, you visit their virtual store, and there's a virtual beauty advisor, beauty esthetician, who can guide you through the store to try the products. Estee Lauder Color Cosmetics has a online tool, a digital virtual tool that allows you to input your own face and try on the different colors of lipstick to see which one suits your skin tone the best for the mood you want to have. And that's not far from Lenskart. Lancome is an offline business that has existed in the physical shopping mall department store world for decades and decades and longest time. Our mothers, our grandmothers, well, my mother, your grandmother would have experienced that in the physical world, and now it's in the virtual world. Lenskart, not offline to online, but the reverse, online to offline. Lenskart started in India as a purely digital optical shop. They have an app where you can, again, put your face in and try on all the different frames they have. You can input your prescription and they'll create the lens to your order, to your spec. But today, Lenskart has more than 100 physical storefronts around the region, around the world. From online business, where they were doing well, they've grown and they need now to be in the offline space. Off to on to off. The two examples above that, I think, are brands that you would be very familiar with. Amazon. Was it 2015, 2016? Or even 2018? 2015, I think they entered the bookstore market. 2018, they entered the supermarket business by buying an existing chain of supermarkets. Why would Amazon, who has built such a success, they were the original disruptors of traditional retail by starting e-commerce and expanded that over the years. Why does an e-commerce giant that has become a success because of e-commerce now go into the physical store space? And they were late. 2 years before Amazon, Alibaba started a chain of Hema stores or Hema stores, right? And these stores don't just retail products. These stores are also the pickup point for online purchases. It's an inventory and distribution center for their online purchases. So all these brands and companies and businesses have had to shift from one world to the other to be in both worlds, online and offline, be omnipresent. In the customer service space I shared earlier, today it's not enough for every business to just offer mobile. They need to be mobile, chatbot, internet, all channels that a consumer might use, right? And a lot of brands, the same message goes to their social media, not only on Facebook, but Instagram and TikTok. Besides IG, it pushes out to chatbots, WhatsApp, WeChat, all at the same time. Why do brands need to do that? And what does that mean for you at your stage in life, thinking about what career you want to go into? The first thing to note is this. These brands and businesses have to be in both worlds because that's where their customer, that's where you, your friends, your tribe, your community, my family, that's where we live and breathe and shop and spend our money. And they have to follow that. So whether you're going to be a marketeer or a real estate manager or even a customer service officer or customer service manager in different industries, the important thing is to be very focused on the customer. It's the customer that decides, and the customer decision is a journey, right? I share with you one tool that businesses and brands and especially marketers use to understand their customers. When a customer wants to buy a product, for example, if a customer wants to go, say a friend of mine, I just met this customer service head of department last week. Her daughter is going to Melbourne to study veterinary science in January. They're shopping now for where that young lady is going to live while she's studying in Melbourne. It starts with a need, right? She's going to be going there to study. She needs a place to stay. And the first thing you do is you start researching. And today, most of that research is done online. You might talk to friends. You might read ads. You might, go to a social media platform to see what reviews there are. You start to research, and a lot of it is online. And then you consider which of the choices you shortlist, right? And then you choose. And after you've chosen, you sign a lease. And sometime after you sign the lease for that apartment, when it's time for term to start, maybe 1-2 weeks before that, or even a month before that, you move in. And the reason it's a roller coaster. It's an emotional roller coaster you go through in that journey of deciding what to buy. And the more expensive the product is, the less impulse and more decision involved in that purchase, the bigger the roller coaster ride becomes. When you're starting to search, you're excited, you may be a little bit afraid that, oh, it's a big step for me to take. And then when, deciding is always hard. So when people choose, it tends to be a low, and people ask themselves, oh, did I make the right choice? Some of us might change our minds more than once. And then when you've made a decision and actually bought it, paid for it, you're probably feeling quite good with yourself. And then just before you use the product, you might be a little bit unsure again. So it's an emotional roller coaster. But the thing to note is that at each of these stages of the customer decision journey, there are different touch points. When you're doing your research, you might be going to websites, reviews, referrals, talking to people. When you're considering, you might send an inquiry. You might wait for them to respond to you. You might use the telephone to make the inquiry. You might chat on a chatbot on the website with a customer service agent. And then when you sign the lease, when you actually make the purchase, it might be at the physical store, it might be the online store. Even for a student apartment, it might be a walk-in during your first visit to the campus. So there are different touch points where you engage with that business and brand. So for some of us who are the marketeers of that brand and business or product, you would have to understand where you can talk to your customers. Grab's customer service center has to be on mobile, has to be on chat, has to be on website. Why? Because that's where their customers are looking for help. So the brand and business need to understand. And then you need to understand what is going to tip them over into choosing your business or product. So what are the triggers? Is it convenience? Is it price? Is it how good the service is, how helpful the customer service officer is? And then be able to meet that trigger and that need. But this is not only true for retail marketing or hospitality marketing. It's also true if you are the facilities manager for a property and you have to report the utilities consumption to your boss at the headquarters in Paris or in Shanghai, that this property has performed this well. And that boss or that internal group of bosses who are monitoring the performance of the area of your responsibility, that becomes your internal customer, right? Your internal stakeholder and customer. So this understanding of the customer, what is their journey, what is their touch point, what are their touch points, what are their decision triggers that will make them enjoy the experience and choose you more often. This is something that is the beginning of understanding, is it offline or online or both, where you need to engage and communicate. And the interesting thing is the customer journey for the first purchase and the first use of a product is very different, often very different to the repurchase or the retention referral part. After you buy a product and use it, you might enjoy the first use, you might not enjoy the first use. There might be all kinds of questions about why the product did this and how do I get that product to do more. And whether the company and the brand and business helps you, in that second stage of your journey, builds a relationship. Why do you choose to use a single product or brand continuously over many years? Because you've had a good experience. Now, increasingly, there are new demands for a certain professional skill set in the marketplace, whether it's sustainability management or IoT facilities management, or in the area of customer service. It has become increasingly scientific. Many brands out there, from Zendesk, which some of you might have used or will be using in your ongoing conversations with universities and student accommodations and all that, are some of those platforms. Salesforce, HubSpot, Pipedrive, Freshworks, these are businesses and brands that particularly focus on customer experience, which is what CX stands for, and customer satisfaction, which is what CSAT means. And today, because the customer needs to experience and engage with the brand, and either loves or hates the brand, is satisfied or dissatisfied with the brand and business, that engagement happens multi-channel. The other thing to note is it's data enabled. Data drives business, product development, marketing activities. But at the same time, while it's virtual, it's digital, it's data driven, it needs to be humanized, because people don't enjoy feeling like they worked with a robot or spoke with a robot, right? So the next thing to understand that will be helpful in learning new skills and applying them in various careers is how to use data. Okay, coming back to the point on consumers, very often businesses and brands, or even product development and research, starts with what they call a customer persona. This customer persona is kind of like a stereotype, archetype of the largest proportion of customers. So if Grab's primary customer type is maybe a 25 to 35-year-old young working professional who is short of time, needs to, but doesn't own a car, hates the MRT and bus, and therefore chooses a private commute or hire vehicle for his daily travel. And this is the ideal customer that Grab wants to capture. And this same, they will begin by shaping an understanding of who is this person. They might put a typical name, a typical personality, interest, behaviors, the demographic, age, occupation, education level. But they would also then look at the psychographic or lifestyle aspects of this person. What drives this person? What frustrates this person? And what are the kind of media they consume in a typical day or typical week? What influences this person's decision? Now, all of this understanding has to be driven by data. Data which is collected either from their existing customers. Every time you engage with them, they're collecting data. It might be anonymized. It needs to be anonymized so that your personal data is protected. But they collect the data from existing customers. They might collect data from third-party sources. They might conduct fresh proprietary research of a particular segment. For example, their primary customer might be 25 to 35, but the potential growth zone might be senior citizens who used to take taxis, but now happily need to go online and book through their app. That might be your 55 to 65-year-olds, right, with a different profile archetype. But all of this starts from data. And that data, whether it's collected from a digital source or a street survey, that has to be pulled together. But the important thing is data by itself is just TMI, too much information. Data by itself is raw and dead. Okay, it's useless until we are able to go through that and extract a learning to identify, is there a trend, is there a expected outcome of a certain action, is there a pattern to the behavior of the data, and then to try and understand why that trend happens, why that data and that trend emerges, and from that understanding, then to come up with an action. So a good example, e-commerce. The first to start 11.11 sales, Alibaba. Where did that come from? And why singles? I think the one very common case study here is that their data show that singles tend to shop more online at a certain time of day, a certain time of night, certain season of the year, right? And based on that, therefore, the opportunity to capture that market and, in a sense, own that segment and that shopping action by hitting them with direct messaging that talks to that group by heart. So the 11/11 sale for singles starting at midnight, when the singles aren't out partying but at home on their own. So that whole trend that today now has Shopee running every other sale based on a number date, right? Evolved from data. When you call a customer service center and they give you a range of options, or if you engage with a website through a chatbot and there are automated AI-driven answers that meet 70% of customer inquiries, that all comes from data that says what is the most common inquiry. And then the customer service director crafts a script to address that common inquiry with an AI driven based on keywords in the chatbot. So data of the customer leads to an action that addresses a need, right? But the other thing that's very important for all of us to understand is this. I think you're beginning to understand what I'm sharing a bit. That technology platforms, the digital technology you create, at the end of the day, is functionally only a tool. When we think about successful digitalization, and many businesses and companies today are still going through that journey of digitalizing the way they do their business or even the way they manage the company, the organization. The technology platform, whether you build it yourself within the company or you buy it off the cloud or you buy it in a box off the shelf and install it in your own proprietary servers in the company, technology is a tool. And the tool really boils down to how it is used and who uses it. I call this the 3 Ps of successful digitalization. For any business or company or even worker, professional, to be able to harness technology and digitalization for an effective integration of offline and online worlds, you have to understand that the technology needs to come with a process for that technology to be used and applied. And then the person who is going to use it needs to be trained and educated and persuaded that this platform and process is actually going to be helpful, more efficient, save my time, save my pain, then I will use it. Or if I am given a tool and don't use it correctly, or even at the worst case, don't use it at all, then the technology tool is, well, wasted money, right? So for any company or person to embark on this digitalization process, you need to understand the platform, the first P. You need to understand how this platform is used, applied, or implemented, the second P. And then you and the people you need to work with in using this technology platform have to be onboarded to want to enjoy and know how to best use the tool. In the world of digital marketing, if you're doing search engine marketing, search engine optimization, Google Display Network ads or programmatic ad buying, the first tool you probably need to learn to use is Google Analytics. And within Google Analytics, which in the next few years is going to again be updated into G4, right? There's a lot of functionalities and features and capabilities, and the company and people who know how to use it well will be the ones who benefit the most out of these free tools available on the market. One other important fact, to understand about the online to offline integrated world, right, is that when we talk about the customer journey, you see from there that in the typical life of any customer, yourself included, you will consume content, you will engage with businesses and brands in many, many different media and channels. Research shows that on a typical day, each one of us is hit by anywhere between 2,000 to 10,000 messages, right? And you consume media on anywhere between 50 to 100 platforms. When you walk down the street, you see an outdoor sign. When you open your phone, you're hit with apps and websites and chatbots and email. In the history of media and communications, there was what we call the traditional or offline media. There was newspapers, TV, magazines, call centers, mailers, shelf toppers at the supermarket store. And the mass media we used to call above the line, the narrow, direct, targeted media we used to call below the line. Why? Above the line was one budget handled by marketeers. Below the line was a separate budget, typically handled by the sales and or distribution channels managers. Today, that line has disappeared. There's no more ATL, BTL. Okay, so it's all one budget and typically handled by marketing. And even for many companies, sales and marketing is one person doing the same job. But at the same time, over the last decades, traditional has merged with digital. Almost every remaining surviving newspaper has an online version. And very often, the news goes out first on their online platform before it gets printed into their hard copy paper, right? Free-to-air TV stations, the alternative is video on demand, pay-per-view, right? Music on demand, subscription to platforms. And every single traditional offline media has its online version and variant, right? And if you talk about brand ambassadors in the past, it will be your movie stars and your TV stars and radio DJs. Today, it's as much your big influencers as well as your micro influencers that a brand needs to engage and use as channels and media for their communications. When you're in the online world and the offline world, you need to have touch points, communication with your customers or your stakeholders across all the media that the customer will see in a typical day or typical night or week. The challenge for brands and businesses is to remain consistent across all the media and channels. Consistent doesn't mean repeating the same message 50 times in 50 different channels or media. It means that your personality, your values, your key messages stay the same, but you use each different medium in a different way that is most suitable and adapted to that medium. A very good example, a simplest example, is if you go into a fast food store like a McDonald's, from a distance, you see the store sign, the big M. When you walk in the door, you see the menu board above the cashier. You see the menu board on the self-serve station. And then somewhere, when you look down, it will be today's promotion and special that they're trying to upsell or upsize you to buy a little bit more because it's today's special, right? So at different stages, as you get closer and closer to that purchasing decision, you see different communication from the brand. And typically, more detail as you get nearer the cash counter and more hardworking upselling and convincing the nearer you get to the cash counter. The branding to create interest and preference and shortlist consideration happens the further away you are, and the nearer you get to the decision, the more details get. So typically, the marketing person or the communication person will need to understand the media consumption or the media engagement touch points and use the different media according to the decision journey to send consistent messaging across the platforms, right? So, okay, today's introduction cannot try and cover an entire degree program within 30 minutes. What I hope I've managed to do is give you a sense of why and where across different industries and possible career directions you choose, the online and offline worlds merge and integrate, where the line above the line, below the line, the border between online and offline no longer exists. And any successful professional of the future, or even today, needs to be able to harness the online technology, digital, to work with the human physical reality in the brick and mortar space. A few tips, and I will recap them in closing. Remember always that whether it's the offline world or the online world, the customer or the key stakeholder decision maker is at the heart of this multiverse, right? Or omni-channel program that every business and brand needs to have. So always try to understand your customer, understand their decision journey, what are their touch points, and meet them at their touch points. The second important fact is data is raw. Okay, data by itself doesn't achieve anything. You need to learn from it, derive insights, and have actions. Otherwise, data is just TMI. Third, technology is a tool. Unless you're into being a developer of a program, a developer of a platform, but even as a developer, you need to understand the customer experience, the customer user flow, and that's why UX, UI, user experience, user interface is and site mapping is one of the early stages for any technology development of any app or website. You need to tap the technology, understand that technology is only a tool, make it work for you. Use the technology to its optimal. And the fourth area to bear in mind is you need to know what your brand is and your key messaging for that brand, and stay the same across online, offline, across all the different media channels. Be consistent. If you're one thing in one world and another thing in another world, you're not gonna, create a happy and satisfied returning customer. So these are four what I call core aspects of being able to succeed in today's multiverse of online, offline, omni-channel. Okay. With that, I will bring this short sharing session to an end and open up for questions, please.
Thank you, David, so much for sharing quite in depth in the world of O2O. So right now we are going to open the floor up to questions for our Q&A sessions. So if you have any questions for David regarding what he has just presented, or if you have any questions regarding advertising, marketing in general, you can feel free to send in your questions into the chat box and we'll get David to answer them. Maybe to start the ball rolling, we can just start off by asking, so being in advertising for so many years, what do you think are the crucial qualities that the people should possess if they want to join the advertising industry? Just to name a few.
Well, I would start with curiosity and hunger. I think when you're in the advertising business, it helps to have a huge amount of curiosity about your own product and industry, to know what really makes your product or what you're marketing, advertising better. And second, to know your consumer inside out. And then, you know, so that hunger, that curiosity for knowledge and understanding, and you know, even to the point of gathering data and crunching the data to understand what it tells you about your industry and your customers, your consumers. That I think is a starting point to be able to do a good job, right? I think a good example is a movie that starred Mel Gibson, where as an advertising man who needed to write an ad for hair removal, which in the old days was a wax strip you stuck on your leg and then peel the hair off. The man selling creating an ad for a product targeted at women, tried it on his own hairy leg, you know. So that kind of curiosity is a key ingredient.
Okay, we have a question. So can Mr. David share about his personal experience and career progression in marketing? So we all know you started off as a copywriter in an ad agency. So maybe you can share with people, with the audience in greater detail, you know, how do you move on from one position to another?
Well, I've been fortunate enough to start as a creative person, writing ads as a copywriter at Ogilvy and Mather in the late 80s. But then had the opportunity to also work on direct marketing before moving on to account management and strategic planning. At one stage of my life, I had an interesting job title of being the holistic strategy planner. And my clients would ask me, do I give good massages? Okay. But jokes aside, I've had the opportunity to work as a creative person, a new business and strategic planner before going on to agency management. And the other aspect is I've had the opportunity to work with American agencies, English agencies, Japanese agencies, French agencies, Publicis, as well as Southeast agencies managing a regional agency network with offices in Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, Philippines, and at one point Abu Dhabi as well. So that's given me the opportunity to experience a lot of different clients, a lot of different industries, and that has helped to build my knowledge.
Maybe you know, just to share a bit more with your vast experiences with so many different clients, you know, which one would be your most memorable case study that you want to share with the audience? You know, I know you have worked with big brands and big celebrities, but which particular ad campaign is the one that really is your pride and joy?
That's an interesting one. I don't think there's one that stands out much more than all the rest, right? I think that at each stop along the way, there have been interesting experiences that one remembers fondly, right? I think perhaps some of the interesting ones would be to, let me dig in a bit. So as an interesting experience, one of the clients I worked on was Allied Domain, which later sold off their businesses to different other competitors in business, some to Pernod Ricard, some to another brand. But Allied Domecq is headquartered in London, and for most of their alcoholic beverage businesses, London was the center of the world where all the global branding, messaging, and campaigns were first developed. Some in the US, but mostly in the UK. However, there was one brand of Scotch whiskey, Ballantine's, where South Korea globally sells the largest volume. And China, a new market for them entering, later than Chivas and later than Johnny Walker, was potentially the largest future market. So for a Scotch whiskey that was sold around the world in the US, Europe, everywhere, South Korea was their biggest current market, and China was their biggest future market. And the global headquarters for branding and marketing and advertising communications was Singapore. So with that client, I had the opportunity to become the global brand director. And that many years ago, for the first time, the opportunity to work as a global brand director for a global brand with the creative work, the communication strategy for the global 17-year-old Ballantine's in South Korea, Finest in Spain, was created out of Singapore. That was quite exciting. Another interesting experience would be for Marie-France Bodyline, which you all might know is a very strong in Southeast Asia, Southeast Asian brand. When we helped them to enter the Middle East marketplace through UAE, the United Arab Emirates, we started with market research to understand what the Arabian, Syrian, Lebanese, ladies' concept of a beautifully contoured physique or body was like. Was it very similar to the Southeast Asian Thai in Singapore, or very different, similar to UK? And the findings from that research actually, some snippets of it, body contour, the ideal body contour related to the UK stars, but the therapist, the most skilled therapist they saw in their mind was a Thai therapist. So interesting marketing learnings in that industry. So across the years, we've had many different interesting experiences.
So with all these experiences, watching the development of marketing and advertising, now the future of advertising and marketing is all about micro influencers and streamers. So what is your take on it, and what is your view on the whole industry right now?
I think what is an important consideration for any marketing or advertising practitioner today is that we need to do more in more places and more ways. I would not say that a external influencer strategy is always going to be the best for any business or brand. Okay, it really depends on who is your target audience and what drives your target audience. Okay, but what is true across all industries is that the marketer today needs to think about owned media, your own websites, your own buildings, facades, your own social media pages, what you own, and you completely control in every detail what you communicate through those owned media platforms or channels, versus what is paid media, where you spend money to have your messages appear at certain times and places. And then the third is earned media, where you do certain things to encourage people to talk about you, whether it's a media channel, or it's an influencer, or it's an existing customer. I think the perfect example where the three need to work together is when someone searches for a certain product or category. So if someone searches student housing in Adelaide, right? What you will see, first of all, is you will see the organic finds that Google pushes out. You will also see the paid ads above organic finds, so that is essentially the domain of search engine optimizations, SEO, for the owned media. You will have the search engine marketing for the ads that appear, the paid media. And if you do the right things, on the right, you'll see the Google My Business, or what is being called Google Business Profile now, where you will have the reviews from existing customers appear there. So on the same web screen, you will see your own media, paid media, and earned media working together. And you really need all three to be able to pack the full punch.
Okay, I think if there are no other questions for the session, I think we can end off the questions. Maybe in closing, David, do you have anything that you want to say to just end off the whole session?
Well, no, I think just a note of thanks to the teachers and the students who have set up today's sharing session. I hope I've managed to shed a little light and put a few more ideas and options in front of you.
Yeah, and I think on behalf of Scholarship Guide, we'd like to thank RI, the teachers and students for taking the time out to join us in our webinar. And of course, we'd like to thank our speaker, Mr. David Fay, so much for sharing all these insights and experiences out of his busy schedule. So we will have this webinar up on our website for anyone who wants to review it on a later time. And if you guys have any questions that you want to reach out to David, you can drop us an email on our website, and we will actually get David to reply them. So with that, we'd like to thank everyone for taking part in our webinar, and we hope to see everyone soon. Thank you so much, David.
Thank you.